Welcome back to the wood shop, guys. Today we're finally back with another Harbor Freight tool video, and today we're looking at this Bauer 20 volt 18 gauge brad nailer. Stick around. Now, before we get too deep in this video, if you watched any of my other, especially my project videos, you know I do have a rigid cordless nailer, and you're probably wondering why I would need two. Well, this one's actually started giving me some issues to the point to where it's not driving the nails all the way into the wood, leaving them sticking up almost a quarter of an inch. And I do have the depth set all the way down. So hopefully this will alleviate that problem. Of course, you are going to have the 20 volt battery set up. You know, either this one I've got the 1.5 amp hour. They do recommend jumping to the 3 amp hour if you want longer run times, but I think this will do good for what we need it to do. Now, like any of my other tool videos, we're going to go through all the features of this. The main one being this does shoot up to 2-inch nails, and we're going to be trying that out in several different species of wood. And hopefully on this other nail gun I got here, maybe I can replicate the problem I'm having and show it to you. But let's not wait any longer. Let's jump right into this thing. Of course, the gun itself, just packing foam, that kind of thing. Instructions. Oh, that's cool. It actually comes with 1,000 2-inch nails too, so that'll come in handy. And that's pretty much it for what's in the box. Now, initial reaction. This one I've actually got a battery attached. Let's kind of fairly similar in weight, so this is quite heavy. I do see some kind of designs that are kind of copied over, just like the rigid here. I don't know if you can pick it up. There is actually a button where you can turn on the light, but I'm pretty positive this one actually will light up anyway when you press the trigger button. And I can feel that same button in here as well. And another thing I've noticed between the triggers, this Bauer one actually has a little bit softer trigger, so it's probably a nicer pull than this one. This one's, there's a pretty hefty spring in there, so that's pretty nice. Here is actually the way you open what we'd call the magazine. Just a little clip on the side, opens up, load your nails in here, shut it back. This one is a little different. You can see it actually opens back here, but same purpose, opens up. But now this rigid one, it is a plastic, at least the cover piece out here is plastic, whereas this one is an aluminum, so that's a nice upgrade. Now, while checking this out, looking online, basically this thing, everywhere I'm looking, at least on Harbor Freight, my local ones, they're selling for $99. I did look up, they were having the parking lot sale, which was not in the parking lot, coincidentally, but they did have $20 off of this, so it was $79.99. Of course, you do have to have the battery, but in my opinion, that's a pretty exceptional deal for this nail gun. Now, rigid naturally is going to be a little bit more expensive. I don't remember what these cost originally. I don't remember what I paid for it originally. I want to say these are around $200, so quite the savings. Pretty nice deal. Okay, so first up, even though it came with 2-inch nails, I'm going to use some 1.25-inch nails, just for, you know, just so I'm not shooting through the wood going into my table. So we'll go ahead and get this loaded up. Magazine release. Open that piece up. Now, other than the battery, this is ready to go. First test, I'm going to just shoot this on a couple pieces of pine. Okay. Light's coming on. Let's see how it does. Wow, it really drove those in there. So let's test this feature here just to see. Yeah, it feels like it was wound all the way down, just to make sure this is working.
3, 2, 1.
So first things first, after trying this on a few runs here, it is quite powerful. It is driving them in as far as you need them to. Now, I did run into one little issue here, and it's kind of sort of along the same lines I've had with that, with the depth adjustment here. Now, if you turn this all the way to the left, at least on mine, it would shoot the nail, but then the little part in here that actually drives the nail down sort of became jammed and it would leave it sticking out. So you had to take this apart, push that back up, reassemble. So if you do have one of these and you're having my issue, you maybe swap it out, see if that's the issue. But if not, you might want to just adjust this a little at a time till you get the right depth. But for what it's doing for me, this is exactly where I usually want them, just right below the surface. And it works great so far. So one other feature that's pretty handy here, depends on what you're doing, of course. There's a little switch down here right above where you would call the magazine. And it's got what they call single sequential or contact actuation. Basically, if you've got it on single, it means put the tool down, press down on the little safety, squeeze the trigger. Now, if you put on the contact actuation, basically, you can actually squeeze the trigger before you ever put it down. And you don't really have to let off the trigger itself. You just keep bumping the bottom and just firing. That way you don't have to do that all the time. I personally like keeping it on the single sequential. You know, to me it makes it more accurate. But if you've got something you're doing a lot of nails, that may be pretty handy for you. Now, just for reference, I'm going to show you what this one's doing, if it'll recreate the problem. And it does. So I'm not sure of the issue, but if you heard this thing firing, it was almost like a distorted sound. And every time it made that distorted sound, you can see it left the nail head up a good little bit here, you know, which is not an issue. You can come back in with a hammer and nail that back down. It's just a little inconvenient. So that's kind of what I was going for with this one. Hopefully we don't have that issue with this new one, but you can kind of see what I'm talking about. Okay, we're going to test it out on a couple more things here. First up, we're just going to nail a couple pieces together. And does that very well. Let's try on, here's some pretty hard maple. Let's see how good it drives it into that. Below the surface, no problem whatsoever. Here's one. I know this is going to go all the way through, so I'll put this on top of another piece of wood, because it's a piece of walnut, but it's kind of thin. It's the only one I could find. Same deal. Drove them in right below the surface. You can see that thing is stuck to that pretty good. Now we'll try it on some red oak. That's usually quite hard. Now I'll only want to use the one end of this because this is actually a pretty good work piece. I don't want to destroy that. So I am noticing, we'll call it misfire. Not every other one. Sometimes this thing will miss a nail. As long as I don't have this depth adjustment shot all the way down, it still retracts, and then I can go on to the next one. I may have to do some research. Maybe there's a fix for that. Maybe we'll have to swap this one. So a little back and forth off camera here, having problems with this thing. We won't call it jamming, but basically uses two functions. So when you squeeze the trigger, a little point here drives the nail down and then retracts. So that's kind of like two actions, the forward and the back. It was not doing the back the way it should have. So it would drive the nail, leave the driving point sticking out and wouldn't retract it. You'd push the gun down again, squeeze the trigger, and it would retract it. So you're basically firing twice for one nail. Now off camera, I did a little bit of filing here because it did feel like some rough edges. Added a little bit of wax. Hopefully that's the issue. Let's show you how it's working now. So much better. Drove every single one of those, below the surface of the wood. I like that part. Maybe it's just a little hiccup, so I don't have to worry about taking this thing and changing it back with Harbor Freight. Just needed some fine tuning. So we're at the end of this video, guys. Not a terribly long video, but just a kind of quick overview and review of this Bauer brad nailer right here. Not a lot to go over. There's some features, but not a ton. Very simple device. And after a few issues, I think we've got it lined out and it's working great. So the question is, do you think this belongs in your shop? If you do have this and you've had the issue I had, leave me a comment below and tell me if you had that issue and you worked through it, or if you had to exchange it. Also, let me know what kind of shop environment you got, whether you're just kind of a DIY guy that's doing this stuff on the weekends, you're like me and kind of got a little side hustle going, or you kind of got a pro shop. Generally if you're doing production work, you're probably not going to go for the cheapest. You're going to go for, something kind of a high-end quality. But I think for my shop, this is going to be just fine. But tell me what you think down below. As always, I appreciate you watching. Like, share, subscribe. We'll see you on the next